Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. And I know this is the last one, a lot of tired faces, yeah? So let's see if we can bump it up, raise the energy levels a little bit. We'll talk less of technology, more of fun stuff. How about that?
Yeah, good idea.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get some energy back, right? Okay, let's see. We will do very few slides and see if we can pick up some excitement on the way, right? So we talk about smart cities, we talk about a lot of technology. I must admit that I myself come from a little bit of a technology background, though not as eminent as some of the speakers that you have come across. But sometimes I think we also tend to forget the people in it. We are there, all this technology is because of the people in it. And do we sometimes get carried away? I do, definitely. So consciously today, for this, I did not know the setting, honestly, but consciously I try to keep the technology out and see if I can keep some fun stuff in. For anything more in technology, I'm always there, reachable. So let's go. So this is really a startup question. What drives adoption? We can throw in all sorts of goodie bags, the fantastic things. How many of you remember the Google Glass? Yeah, you do, right? Fantastic piece, but kind of struggle at this. If you go down into the history of technology, you will find many more such examples. And the key lies in, if it solves my problem, yeah, why not? But if it doesn't, if I have to take on a new habit, that instead of catching it like this, I have to catch it like this, which is where we hit that technology curve, right? This is borrowed. But I think I did not know what is going to be discussed in this room today, through the day. I put it last night. But does it capture some of the things that have been expressed? Security, privacy, data as the new oil. It does. It's borrowed by somebody. There was an incident, a big flare-up for the Toronto waterfront. How many of you are familiar with that? That happened sometime late last year, right? Where the waterfront thing was kind of auctioned off for people to beautify and et cetera, et cetera. But there are a lot of citizens who come there in the evening, and they didn't like that. So that had to be rolled back, right? And so this essentially came out of that. Why am I showing this is because I think the concerns remain. While it can solve a lot of our problems, but I think there was a question in the room sometime back about the data in the wrong hands. This is my favorite. I promised you some fun. This is not quite the definition of fun that we were expecting. But nevertheless, I think we build systems to rule it all, but all rules have exceptions. And I think the gentleman from Bosch mentioned that the GPU going off means somebody has to fly from here to Malaysia. That's the exception. When we design systems, we forget the exception. And oftentimes, the failure is because of those exceptions, because that is where the rubber meets the road. The end users actually see that exceptions first. That's the first thing that they're going to get hit. Less of technology, but more of how the consumption patterns have been changing. None of this is new to you. Most of us in this room have probably seen this happen. And the way we interact with the environment, with the people, has been changing. The way we consume and communicate has been changing. And so it's not 1995, it's 2019. And so what are the tools and technologies that we are using today is both relevant and probably is going to decide the success, the adoption part of it. So I talked about habits and catching the ear like this or like that. So what drives adoption is probably a big function of some of these things. So how many of you witnessed the growth of what we call the modern social media, right? I guess most of us did. Sometime 2015, 2016, that changed in favor of messaging. Not surprisingly, top 10 apps in app stores, in both of them. 7 of them are actually messaging apps, right? 2015, before 2015, they used to be more of gaming apps. Right? That has changed. Digital natives, early adopters. What gets adopted by them is essentially what moves forward. We all know that, but how much do we design for them? The last one, customer support. How many of you think it's important versus delivering the first one? Most cases it is not, because that's an afterthought and saying, oh, once we have customers, we'll think of supporting them, right? And for many, they would say, yeah, that's a good problem to have. I also do that, by the way. I'm guilty of that, right? But the success lies in that. So what we are doing today is essentially summing up the last 4 or 5 slides to say that, yes, consumption patterns have changed. People want solutions first. They want their problem to be solved first. I don't care about how big is your head, as long as it solves my problem, right? There is a little bit of what I would say inertia problem with apps and all the digital things. So we are getting digital natives and digital citizens and et cetera, et cetera. It has killed the problem of distance, but we probably know our neighbors much less than we did 20 years back. And that's an unfortunate fallout of it, right? And so how do we do this? So we solve this problem in some ways. How many of you live in, let's say, community setups and have a WhatsApp group for that community? Yeah? I think a few hands go up. That was a natural selection. It was not designed for that. When the creators created that, it was a natural selection because it solved your problem. Sorry. So before I go further, that's the kind of thing that we are working on to create the service offering all in one, because I do not like to talk to so many people. I just need to talk to something. So if you have a personal assistant at work, there will be 10 other departments that you have to interact with, but you do not have 10 personal assistants. You just deal with one. Let he or she take care of the rest, right? That's the thing. That's the paradigm that we are talking about. So when we talk about smart cities, and by the way, we work more today with workplace applications, but it applies to citizens as well as consumer users, that in our typical day, we end up interacting with multiple things. It could be utilities, it could be transport, it could be gas, it could be light, it could be incidents, it could be security. And we already heard a lot about how many different siloed systems there are there. But put all of them in a WhatsApp group, even the Bangalore Traffic Police has a WhatsApp group. Yeah, it works. Because suddenly the boundaries are dropped, because the information that we are sharing is no longer structured. It does not come with an XML tag starting or a JSON file. It is just plain simple English saying, there's not going to be water tomorrow morning. Right? You better understand it. Most of us understand, right? So this is how we imagine, not just imagine, we actually work on this as to how the experiences of future or tomorrow, not so much in future, but tomorrow it would be. That if you have an outage, we can put up a post, but most people don't know where to look for it. They don't even know. It's only after the damage is done that you look for, okay, was there an event there? Was there anything posted there, right? And so the biggest challenge for us and all of us is, how do we as a provider reach them proactively than reactively? And I'm not playing with words. Is that small little thing that mobile phones got into the picture in the first place, thanks to much before 5G, let's say, is the notification feature. That's the reason why mobile phones became so popular and everybody wanted to have an app, is because I could reach back, right? So reaching back is absolutely important. And this is just one of those example cases of, it could be an outage, a pipe burst. There were talks about fire catch in Bengaluru Lake, the famous one, right? How do you alert people? And getting a pulse. This is probably my last one. Getting a pulse and getting a feel of what is really happening. So we do all of these things, and then we probably account for them as a post-facto analysis, saying what worked and what did not. Google Glass is a good example of that, right? Steve Jobs often is credited with the fact that no market survey, no market analysis, and yet get blockbuster products. But Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs, right? I'll leave you with this as to how do we make people happier is not just by smiling a lot. Yes, they help. But what really helps each one of us is if you can solve my problem today. How fast and how quickly can you do that? So with that, I know I had that think about carrying the fort till the last moment. So thank you so much being so patient, and over to you.